welcome in. This is your odds checker betting preview for this week's Players Championship. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there, Geoff Fienberg. And Geoff, this is quite a sizable event. We've got not only the world's best, but $20 million on the line this week.
Florida golf and the biggest payday on tour for the entire year. So a lot to be expected of this week. And, we're sort of promised the best coverage we can get all year. So a lot of check marks in our favor for what should set up to be an outstanding event. For all the talk about, where this does truly belong in sort of ranking or its place in golf as a tournament, to a man, it's the biggest purse on tour. So it's incredibly important to the players, especially the ones that pay for cash. There's pride guys and there's like history guys, and then there's cash players. This is the one where I think they can rise.
Yeah, certainly checks off quite a few boxes between a little bit of legacy, a lot of cash. You can get a lot going for this week. Just looking at the card, because I'll tell you what, I get excited every week on tour, but I especially get excited a handful of times each and every year. Obviously the major championships, but the Players now being back in March, the first real biggie. I tend to want to overextend myself. Should I squash that desire or should I indulge it a little bit?
I'm always here to indulge, Rick. And yeah, you can make the case because there are a lot of weather unknowns still as we record this, how it can play. Florida, we've already seen some amazing live tickets through the Florida swing already. A lot of people hit JT last year, not even at the starting gate, but some nice live lines heading into the weekend. So you can make the case if you want to, slow roll until you make your move. But hey, I have too much fun talking about these, Rick. And for the purposes of this event and this board, I think we all woke up pretty excited with all the options that we could make. I think the odds makers were sort of telling us this thing is really wide open. When you compare this odds board to, say, the Masters in less than a month, they're saying the Masters, it's a lot easier, I think, for you guys to predict who's probably going to play well and who's going to win. This can be a free-for-all. I recall last year, guys like Cantley were 8 over the first time I looked at the app, and Finau and a lot of Hatton, like a lot of really popular picks. So we know what this event can bring, the unpredictability of it, but that just created an odds board and an odds checkered grid that has to have everybody excited to put a few names together.
Yeah, at least wait until maybe Saturday morning to get attached to your tickets. Don't get attached on Thursday morning. That's the mistake I always make. Here's the grid in all of its glory. And it is not just Jon Rahm at the top here, Geoff, because Justin Thomas joins him at 14-1. And then it's Colin Morikawa, the only other golfer under 20. And you're going to want to shop all of those. For example, Morikawa on the grid as short as 11-1, as long as 16-1. So a little bit of competition here for JR at the top.
Yeah, and under 20-1, I was hoping maybe Rory could get a little bigger, but I got to do it, Rick. It's the first time of the year. Call me the chalk monkey. I am putting my chips in at the top. I am going to Jon Rahm. I thought about Morikawa, but then in the end, it's like, listen, like I love Morikawa. It makes a lot of sense, but for just 2 points more, people can debate this. I still am of this belief. It's a fair debate. The conversation is fair. I couldn't talk you off Morikawa, but I still think Jon Rahm is the best golfer on planet Earth at this moment. So I am taking the plus 14 at an event that, we always have seen him play well at. It's one that easy to assume it's one that like you projected him to put in his bag at some point, the trophy. I'm willing to ignore for how bad he's playing. He finishes are strong.
Yeah.
It was a really hard week. You look where he finished. The putter has abandoned him on a putting surface that I think he can get comfortable with. Clearly, I'm going to want to see the good feels early in this one, but I got nothing else to sell. I am in on Jon Rahm. I'm in on the top of the betting board for the first time as they bring Rahm back to another tier.
Okay, I've got a space saved at the top for one of these guys, and it is I believe it is going to end up being John Rahm for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, we are in uncharted territory with how bad his short game has been, and he's a top 20 machine. I mean, it's unbelievable how high the floor is. Even if he has his B plus game, might be good enough to win around Sawgrass. So I will not bemoan John Rahm, but I think you and I, Geoff, are going to be on the same page there. If you start getting into the 20s, you can get to Rory McIlroy and Victor Hovland, and then this is where the rest of the PGA stars start piling up. Patrick Cantlay, Scotty Scheffler, even Xander Schauffele here, Geoff. If you make that bet on Rahm, is it safe to assume you don't have another wager here?
Yeah, so I had to go a little bit farther back, Rick, and miss those 20s. And like a lot of people, or maybe people swear them off, how finicky they are. I'm very tempted with conditions, with the setup not being nearly as difficult as last week, that, Victor and Rory can play to the rounds where they, played quite well last week and score and have no problems. I'll be sad. I won't be sad for Victor. I'll be sad for myself, I guess, if I miss that one. And Rory, thought maybe we can find some better numbers. Cantley seems totally fair. Scheffler, like he's a bulldozer right now. I don't know. I'm not I just can't. I'm not betting it. I'm not betting the back-to-back. I'm not betting the 3 and 4. Xander always tempting for me, Rick. I've invested a bit there. He has an early career player's second place. Outside of that, it seems like, if it wasn't for this purse, it takes the players or a WGC to get Xander to tee the ball up in Florida. That'd really be the only negative I have to say, but the number is getting there. And I am strongly considering backing my Rahm pick with one of Decky or Berger. Those are two guys I am very much have my eye on. Decky's just been around these tracks so many times, very comfortable, just such a complete clean player. Obviously landmines everywhere and he can find them. I don't dispute that. You'd like, to lose a couple of the bogeys. And Berger, I remember sitting there Saturday night being like, well, I guess I'm never going to get Berger, flirting with 40 at full fields again. And here we are, and we can still get it. And I'm a believer in Daniel Berger. So I think the 35s being offered are quite fair and strong.
Yeah, that 35-1 on Daniel Berger, that's at DraftKings. He can be as short as 25-1 in some other places. And then Hideki Matsuyama, 31-1. That is at FanDuel. Okay, Geoff. So now we start squeaking down this board and we get outside of 40, and these are some familiar names. These are guys with lots of big wins and major championships. Dustin Johnson is here. Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth. Is there any enticement for one of the big boys coming out of the 40-1 tier?
Man, so you see Dustin back here, and over the last couple years, he's talked about how much more, whether it be the schedule change of the time of year, that he does like the players. Even, he had to, because early in his career, even at some of his peaks, he was always seemed to struggle here. But every time he talks about the place, he does talk about it positively, and that he does like getting around here. Just think I need to see the engine rev a little more, a little better results for me to pull it on Dustin. Full transparency, Rick, I bet that Brooks Koepka out of the gate this morning at 50-1. I did bet it. I like it a lot less now, as I'm probably 12 hours since making that wager. Like, it doesn't feel like, I don't feel as sharp or as like into it. Now it'd be like, I don't know, my buddy, I've already joked about selling it off to him. And and pivoting to say Sung J M sitting at 48-1 on that FanDuel grid. We're still in Florida. I do really like how Sung J profiles for at pretty much any event, especially on Bermuda grass. But he is a guy that, I mean, maybe in the end, I'll end up making a Sung J over Brooks head to head to actually put money on my sentiment at this moment here. But Sung J M in this range, Rick, flirting just in front of 50-1. Would be my favorite of these discussed players.
Yeah, 48-1 at FanDuel. I will probably, I miss the really, really good numbers on Brooks, and I'll probably just sit it out and say if I get wiped, I get wiped. No problem there, because there's a couple of guys here in the 50s, Geoff, that have caught my attention. I'll just tell you, it's Will Zalatoris. He's here along with Joaquin Neiman, Sam Burns, and then you can start to get some savvy vets like Adam Scott and Billy Horschel. You can buy back on maybe another good week from Terrell Hatton at 65-1. What would you like to do in this next section of the board?
So I have bet Louis Oosthuizen, Rick. I got a 64 on him this morning, 60-1 right now. Does seem very strong. Not making any like you just see how he plays in some of the strongest fields with the biggest names. And I'll go back to it. At the Honda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know at least into the final hour of that event, he was leading the field in birdies, total birdies made. So that is something that you're a player like Louis. Honda's got all those, landmines. Sawgrass certainly has them too, and you can get exploded here also. But when you're of that skill, when you're one of these guys, I'm willing to see the total birdies and think it's the smallest little fix that cleans up the ugly. And if Louis, and I can trust Louis to bring the total birdie number, but let's lose the other stuff. I have enough confidence in him in that. So Louis Oosthuizen 60-1, despite some really strong names and guys that feel like they could be really good course fits in and around this number.
Yeah, I went with Zalatoris, kind of cut from the Justin Thomas cloth. I obviously worry about the putter, but he's dominated the par fives at Sawgrass. There's a little bit of evidence that that is one of the paths to victory. And then I also bet on Max Homa, who you should definitely shop because there's 50s out there or there's 70s out there. And Homa is starting to put together all facets of the game. And we're seeing a bit of life back in Gary Woodland. You can get access to him at 75-1, or Chris Kirk, who's been riding this great Florida swing as long as 90-1. How deep down this board are we going to continue to go here, Geoff?
For me to make another bet, Rick, you have to be what I call friends or family. Just players that I really like, that I believe in, that I sort of like. If your favorite team is playing in a playoff game and you're going to bet that playoff game, you're betting your favorite team, or you're not betting the game at all, kind of in that respect. And guys like Tony Finau, who statistically weren't as bad at Riviera as I think maybe the perception might be, as our friend Pat Mayo pointed out to me today, we're now at an 80. I mean, that's just a number that's hard for me to ignore, Rick. And seeing a guy, I know the game is struggling, but even like Tommy Fleetwood flirting just in front of 100-1, coming off some quality golf. I mean, those would be guys in this range, but I don't think I'm going to have much here because, as we've kind of already been through, I'm going to bet on Rahm. I plan on betting one of Im or Berger, and then, Hideki or Berger, and then I would like to have money on Im and Louis. So once I make that Rahm bet, that kind of kills a couple bodies, and those bodies are certainly going to come from north, like that 60-100 range. Despite the players having a long shot, thing to it, I wouldn't discount that. But once I'm playing the top of the board, I just got to look at those numbers and, just have no opinions on them almost.
Yeah, you start running out of bullets quickly, and I think you start running out of legitimate win equity quickly once you get past some of these guys as well. Okay, so for the first time in a long time, Geoff, you are going to the top of the board. Now, when you do that, you kind of mentioned getting access to things that are sentiment in terms of maybe a head-to-head matchup or two. I like that. Are you going to also dabble into your top 5, top 10? How just huge will your card be? We normally talk outrights, but talk me through some of the other options that you have available to you.
Honestly, I'll be pretty exposed. So I'll be hoping to, win back my outright losses in the prop market. I guess that's normally the plan. I think the top 40 market can be really advantageous. If you're confident guys can get through the cut, that's, something I, at least on my odds checker props, have been hitting at quite a nice number. That they do kind of save the week for me, Rick. The placings, the way the books are offering the extended placings, the competition in the marketplace for our money this week, it's almost like the books have almost started golf season this week. You can just tell by what they're doing to I guess compete for our dollars. Guys like Luke List sitting at 180-1, and they're giving you 9 places. So those are things that I 8-9 places, those sorts of things. But I haven't really fully fully put myself into the prop market yet, to be honest, but it's the Players Championship, Rick, so I can guarantee I'll be overexposed.
Yeah, anytime you get an opportunity to watch all the shots, you can just empty the bank account on that. I'm fine with it once a year. Geoff Fienberg, available on Twitter at gfienberg17. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been your odds checker betting preview for this week's Players Championship. Good luck.